All right, let's go out to Jenny in Chicago. What's up, Jenny? Jenna.
Hi.
What's up?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I'm so nervous.
Oh.
Hi.
All right, let's do this. Let's sing our favorite song. You go first. Go. I'm just kidding. You don't have to sing. You don't have to sing. Nothing to be nervous about, okay? What's up?
Okay. All right. So I wanted to know how I could talk to my son about his biological father. I guess backstory is I was sexually assaulted about 5 years ago. And from that, I became a parent to an awesome 4-year-old. I met someone about 3 years ago, and now we're basically married. We have a home together. We have another child together. My partner stepped into the father role, and although we used a nickname for him instead of dad, like when we had our next kid, it kind of just turned into him calling him dad, like 24/7. Now my child is 4, and he's kind of wondering why his hair doesn't look like our hair because his hair is lighter, and I'm kind of worried about questions that he's going to ask. I want to be honest with him. I don't want him to grow up and have me break it to him and he feels like his whole life is a lie, but I don't know how to correct him at his young age, and I don't want him looking for a biological father when he's older. I don't want him to know the way he was conceived.
He will. He will. There's a lot here. One of the core premises of this show is that I want us to call a spade, and I want us to all tell the truth all the time. I also know that sometimes that's borderline unethical because normally it takes some time with somebody who's hurting, who's experienced as much hurt as you have, to establish the level of trust necessary to get to the place where I can say, hey, can we just call this what it is? But because of this format, everything's compressed. And so can I say some pretty harsh things, real direct, that I want you to know is it's me with you, okay? But for the sake of people listening, even just out of the gate, you chose some language that was very instructive for me. And I just want to point that out to everybody listening. Is that okay?
Yes.
Often in my whole career has been a big chunk of my career was sitting with sexual assault victims, okay? And with rape victims. And often I found, not often, but a heartbreaking amount of times, women used sexual assault because saying that I was raped put them in a different category. They felt like it put them in another category. But what happened to you was rape, and what happened to you was evil and wrong, right? Yeah. Can I tell you I'm so sorry?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say it that way just because something so great came from it, right? Like my child came from what happened. So I'm so grateful. And I guess maybe sometimes I don't put the real heavy weight on it. You know, my partner says that I'm guilty of like talking about things very factually, things that have happened to me.
Well, yeah, there's a defense mechanism, right? That I'm going to talk about everything very clinically and very distant, so it doesn't affect me. I want to assure you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you're being affected. One of the core tenets, in fact, when this show, when we're done, I'm going to send you a copy. It's not out in the marketplace yet, but as soon as it gets out, I'm going to send a copy of my brand new book. But stage 1 of this wheel, right? This wheel of being well is you have to own reality. And by minimizing one side of the teeter-totter that is this experience, you had everything stolen from you. You were raped. That's one side of the teeter-totter. The other side of the teeter-totter is you got the greatest gift of your life, this beautiful little boy. Both of those things are your life experience, and they're both true. And squashing either one of them, minimizing either one of them, your body pays the price. See what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
I'm so sorry that happened. So sorry that happened. Okay, when it comes to little boy, um, let me say this: is Bio Dad? Is he in jail? What's his story?
He is in the military, so he's far away from here, and he actually doesn't even know that my son exists.
Ooh. That can't go on for very long. And you know that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Man. Did you choose to not make police reports or anything like that?
I mean, I reported it within the military, but
Okay.
they have a very different way of handling it.
I understand.
I myself was in the military at the time, so that seemed to be the easiest avenue to go through.
I think you may be setting yourself up for a major mess if Bio Dad finds out X number of years later that he has a child. Man. Let me ask you this hard question. What's the end game here?
I guess I don't know. I'm taking it day by day.
Okay.
I obviously want to be honest with my child. That is the most important thing. I don't want to be too honest.
So the truth will emerge. The truth will come out at some point. You are correct in not wanting your child to find out the truth and then find out that level of pain and hurt, and also find out mom lied to me, because then his entire world is in shatters, not just part of it. I don't think he has to learn the depths of the crime committed against his mom. But also, it's not true to say your daddy just left you, because daddy doesn't know you exist. And he may come back and try to be the greatest father that ever lived. And I would suggest that it's the court of law. And I know you've been through it with the military court, and I know that's such a zoo. And it's heartbreak on top of heartbreak. It's trauma on top of trauma. When you get tribunal, then nobody believes you, or they tell you, no, we just don't have it. Like whatever he said, whatever the thing they're going to tell you to make this thing go away. But you don't want to become a monster in the process of trying to stay away from a monster, and not letting somebody know they have a child puts you in not great company right now. See what I'm saying?
Yes. Okay. I do.
And I know that's not why you're calling, but here's ultimately the thing. The story, if dad says, I don't want anything to do with this, you take my name off the birth certificate, he's getting adopted by this new guy, fine. If he does that, then there is a plausible conversation to have with your kid that mommy, that your daddy is somewhere else. He's in the military. Why did daddy leave? Well, daddy was working. I mean, we're going to slowly have this conversation over the course of X number of years. And as he grows up, he's going to get a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. But you don't want to be in the position of lying to him and saying your daddy left you, your real dad left you, your real dad doesn't exist, or this is your real dad, this is your real dad. And then when the truth comes out, when he does 23andMe when he turns 18, which he will,
right?
Or he'll be in some biology class 101, and part of the assignment will be that every student has to do 23andMe. Like, it will come out, especially with technology the way it is. And so a phrase I want you to keep in your heart is secrets destroy families. And so another layer of complexity here has to be, at some point, Bio Dad has to know there's a child involved. And if he says, hopefully he won't, says, well, why didn't you tell me? You can say, you know exactly why I didn't tell you. And you can send a formal request from an attorney that says, you have a son. this guy wants to adopt your son and go from there. That can happen too.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that make sense? Tell me what you're feeling. Is that just awful that I ruin everything?
I mean, I definitely don't want to interact with him. I mean, but I do understand that putting things in place legally instead of just putting it down on paper is definitely like a way to protect myself in the future.
Here's what you don't want to have happen, okay?
Coming back.
You don't want to have a civil and or criminal suit filed against you that said this woman made up charges against me that, by the way, were found not guilty in a military court. And she hid my child from me for 3 years, for 5 years, for 10 years, for 18 years. She stole those years with my child away from me. And you will have no recourse.
Okay.
I don't want you to find yourself in that position when he comes in and says, I want 100% custody. I found out I've got a child that she was hiding from me. She's already leveraged false allegations against me that was found not guilty. See what I'm saying? Like, yeah. all the deck's going to be stacked against you. And I don't want that to happen. I'd much rather you have the best you can, an amicable interaction. If you reached out to this dude, or if your attorney reached out to him, did you have any sort of previous relationship with him, or was this like an out of the blue rape and assault? Tell me about it.
I did have a relationship with this person. So, I mean, I had information, like, let's say, like a phone number, or like I know his Facebook or whatever. Obviously, we're not friends or anything, but sure. I have those like information if I needed to reach out, or if I had like legal reach out.
If legal reached out and said, you have a son via Jenny, and here is this person wants to adopt this child, what would happen?
I really don't know.
I think that has to be your direction. That has to be what y'all decide to do.
Okay.
Because I have unfortunately sat with kids who were told this guy is your dad or this person's your mom. They find out when they're a sophomore in college that that's not true. And I've had them sit in my office across from me and they can't breathe because everything they know is a lie. And at 18, 19, 21, 24, there's that anchoring in that when all else gets sideways, I trust her, I trust him. And if that goes away, that's why divorce is so much, it's like compound interest. It grows in how much it hurts kids because what they anchored into doesn't exist anymore. So it's like cutting the string on a balloon. They just float up in the sky. And some of them make it. Some of them do great. Some of them get tethered again. It's awesome. Many, many, many float around for years and years and years and years and years. So I tell you that to tell you, like, man, the fastest path towards I don't want to engage with this dude. I don't want to have a conversation with this guy. We have a kid together. It's part him and part me. When it comes to the moment, let me answer this one question. When it comes to the moment, if you ever feel I need to tell him there was rape and sexual assault involved in this one evening, this one event that led to me getting pregnant with you, I would strongly, strongly recommend getting with a counselor that works with teenagers when you would have that conversation, or with young adults, and letting that person who's trained in how to have those conversations lead that conversation.
Okay.
There's people who are very gifted and they create relationship, and what they're doing is they create new things to anchor into, so that when they pull the plug on what was, that kid's just not, again, cutting the string and just floating off into space. They're very, very talented at what they do. One of my closest buddies, she's Dr. Lynn Jennings. She'll sit with a kid whose dad maybe murders somebody or is in jail, and she will build a relationship and a rapport with this kid over time, and then say, "Daddy's here." And then it gets a little bit, "Daddy hurt somebody really bad," and then a little while later, it is, "Daddy took somebody's life." I want you to remember this too. This is really important. kids understand that half of them is mom and half of them is dad, wherever mom and wherever dad happens to be.
Right.
And so if dad's a monster, the instantaneous response is, well, I've got that, and I'm part monster too. And that's really tough for a kid. You can tell them you are not your dad. You're nothing like that. You would never do that. That's where a child counselor is really, really helpful.
On the day-to-day with him just being only 4, like, do I even say anything at all, or
4 is really young. 4 is really young.
Okay.
But it goes real fast. 4 becomes 5 and 6 and 7 very, very fast. 4 is, why does my hair look like this and all y'all's hair look like that? You say, well, let's draw a picture of it. I like your, and you can begin to take ownership. You can teach this kid to take ownership of how he looks, how beautiful he is, how cool his hair is. You could teach him how to take ownership without answering any questions. And then you could say, like, well, let's look at our feet. Let's see how our feet look, right? So we're going to anchor into some concrete truths, but we're not going to say, you've got another dad somewhere. Here's why. Because that dad doesn't know he exists. And you want to be able to say, after you've communicated with dad, either through legal means, through an attorney, or directly, you make a phone call. You want to be able to communicate and say, here's how your dad responded when he found you were alive. And I'll tell you, it will be hell on earth to have to hold in one hand what that man did to you, and in the other hand, have that guy 2 rows over at a school play 5 years from now. Or that guy turns out to want to be the best dad that ever existed and rolls out of his appointment in the military and gets into something else where he can be closer and wants to be plugged in with the life of his son. All those things, it's a very real possibility. Your pain and your hurt cannot bleed over into punishing your son for what his dad did. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that's God almighty, that's a gross, awful mess. I'm just sitting here and I wish I could hug you. I know you're not here. I'm sorry. Does it feel like a lot?
Does it?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking you. Does this feel like too much?
We've talked about having my partner adopt my son for a while, actually. So I knew it was kind of coming. I mean, I don't exactly know the formalized process, but I knew it was going to have to come back in my face at some point.
I don't know the laws of Illinois. I do not believe that it's legal anywhere to not tell somebody that they have a child and to legally adopt that child out to somebody else without giving notice. I might be way wrong on that, but I don't think I am. If there's some absenteeism, if somebody bails, takes off, my understanding is there's a formal process to say dad disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is you probably signed some papers that said dad was absentee. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That might get you into trouble down the road because dad may not have been absentee. Dad didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to know, I totally understand, 100% agree with why you did what you did. Right.
I appreciate that.
I don't think you're a terrible person. I think you are doing exactly what a rational person would do and say, I don't want a monster in my life. I don't want a monster around this new baby. I don't want a monster around at all. But I don't want you to break the law in the process.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Listen, call me anytime, Jenny. I'm going to be sick to my heart with you and for you. Yeah, call me anytime. If your new husband wants to call, have him holler at me. I'd recommend, like, honestly, if I'm you, I would hang up the phone here and I would call a friend who's an attorney and walk them through what you've done, what you've signed, where things have been, and get their wisdom and advice on where to go next. Make no mistake, the truth will emerge someday. All of it. All of it. And let's be on the right side of being people of integrity, even when it's blindingly hard like this situation. Because you don't want that kid who's now a young adult to look at you and go, you too? We don't want that. Thank you for being a great mom, Jenny. Call anytime.